Social anxiety disorder, a mental disorder describing someone who feels an intense amount of fear of being watched or judged by others. Now, when people look at a person with this disorder, they're always quick to judge them. Well, most people think that. They assume that this person is, to put it simply, weird. In details, they would say something like this person is a psycho or a creep, to name a few. In most, if not all cases, that person is just socially awkward and doesn't know how to communicate with others. In other words, just because they don't talk to people, it doesn't mean that they don't want to create long-standing connections or friendships. Now, here's a fun fact for you. There are a good amount of celebrities that have revealed to be socially inept, like the famous tennis player Naomi Osaka, who has declined interviews due to mental health. Another example is Sons of Anarchy actor Charlie Hunnam, who's admitted in an interview that he hates socializing with people he doesn't know. Now, media portraying social anxiety tend to be a hit or miss, but when done right, it can be a big eye-opener. Now, some of the best movies that tackle this include the Oscar award-winning film The King's Speech, the underrated comedy film Napoleon Dynamite, and arguably the best Adam Sandler film of all time, Punch Drunk Love. Now, there aren't any good TV shows that tackle this, with the exception of Mr. Robot and to some extent The Good Doctor, and it's especially rare for a video game to tackle it. But some of the best examples include the hit JRPG Persona 5 and the criminally underrated indie game Sim. Now, as I stated in my old Grisaya review, I always enjoy anime that tackles mental illness, and there were very few series that truly tackle social anxiety, with the best examples being Watamote, Welcome to the NHK, March Comes In Like a Lion, and My Roommate is a Cat. All are great series, and the way they tackle social anxiety can be very thought-provoking. But in all honesty, I believe that this video's topic tackles it better than them all. So, what's good, YouTube world? Killua Morales is back at it again with another anime review, and today we'll be looking at the beloved romantic comedy series, Komi Can't Communicate. Let's hop into it. So the story follows Shoko Komi, a young girl that's seen by her classmates as a goddess walking on Earth. Now, throughout the first day of school, students and faculty admired her unprecedented stoic beauty and refined elegance. That was until during class transitions, the exceedingly average schoolboy Hitohito Tadano sees a side of her that no one has ever seen. You see, under that bishoujo appearance is an innocent and shy girl with a severe communication disorder. When Tadano took notice, Komi immediately ran away in embarrassment, until he found a way to talk to her in the form of writing on a chalkboard. Now, after a beautifully monotonous conversation, Tadano learned many things about Komi, with the big one being that she wants to make 100 friends before she graduates. So he became her first friend and promised to help her reach that goal, thus beginning the wacky adventures of two adolescents living their lives while making new friends in the process. Now, school life anime pretty much follows the same formula on a fundamental level. High school students attend school, they feel like that there's more to life than just getting their education, they find something that changes not only how they see school but also life, and they actively work on whatever that something is. It's your typical coming of age story. And this series, when it comes to that, is nothing we haven't seen before. It relies heavily on relationship building as it shows the daily lives of our fellow characters. What makes this different from its counterparts is that it's trying to entertain you with its colorful characters. And with that, you can see that Komi Can't Communicate exceeded expectations with that goal in mind. Now, story-wise, the overarching story is the main relationship between Komi and Tadano, but most of the time it's completely sidelined due to the fact that each of the short stories are a blast to watch, especially as it develops each of the side characters. It's episodic, but each of the stories blend well with the next, so you're never confused on what happened through each transition. Come to think of it, the story can be split into 4 categories. 1. Komi is put into an adorable situation, like petting a cat. 2. Tadano is shown to be a very nice guy. 3. A romantic relationship between 2 characters is developed, obviously the relationship between Komi and Tadano. And 4. The wacky characters cause chaos after chaos with Komi. Now, in most of the short stories, these categories are used to further the main story, and one would think that this would get old after a while. But amazingly, it doesn't, as each short story is different, ensuring that the main story strays away from being repetitive and unoriginal. But the biggest downfall to the story is the narration, especially in the English dub. The narrator chimes in at every time whenever there's a caption pop up or when Komi is using her notebook to speak with others. Thankfully, when Komi is speaking with others, it's being read out by whomever she's talking to. Other than that, it's rather irritating when practically every minute or two the narrator chimes in by either explaining what social anxiety is or just reading out the caption pop-ups, losing the immersion factor of the story. It's not as prominent in the Japanese dub, but it was overkill in the English dub, so depending on your preference, you may not have a good time with this anime. Now, this is a comedy series, so expect there to be a laugh here and there like green eggs and ham. This has a lot of slapstick humor and a good amount of fourth wall breaks, so you're bound to laugh your guts out most of the time. Now, most of the humor comes from the many references to other media like Mario Kart, Smash Bros, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Code Geass, Another, Love Chunibyo and Other Delusions, Pokemon, Naruto, Gintama, Spider-Man, and The Girl That Leapt Through Time. The crazy thing is, that's just a small handful of the references. But the most prominent comedic moments are obviously the constant running gags. But to talk about them, I'll have to talk about the characters. Thankfully, the characters ensure that the story never gets boring. First, let's talk about the titular character. Now, this may be a little controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Komi is not the best character, but that doesn't make her a bad character, let alone the worst. I'll talk about that character later. But Komi is without a doubt the most developed character. When you see her after her big reveal in the first episode, you see a girl that's sweet, timid, curious, and most importantly, fragile. She's easily embarrassed, easily scared, and easy to upset. Despite being seen as a Mary Sue, she's far from perfect. And seeing her go through a culture shock as she experiences new things she's never seen or done before makes her feel more and more like a normal girl. Now, being a person that's been living with mental illness most of his life, the way social anxiety disorder is portrayed through Komi's eyes is not only very entertaining, but also, and most importantly, very informative. Just from the comedy alone, you can see and understand how much she suffers from it, and never once did they try to take the piss out of it. This especially brings out her fragility, which shows that even though the world around her sees her as some goddess, in reality, she's still a normal girl with normal desires, but doesn't know how to express them without forcing her to do so. What makes her even better is that in the beginning, she's portrayed like a modernized pretty girl from 80s and 90s anime like Sailor Moon and Cardcaptor Sakura. But as the story progresses, her wardrobe and looks change when feeling relaxed around her friends, especially around Tadano. Also, I can't help but admit how adorable she is most of the time. When you see those cat ears pop out of her hair, don't tell me that your cheeks didn't turn red. In the end, the one thing you can say about Komi is that she's a maiden that yearns for a life with those she cherishes. The best character of the series is ironically the most average character as well, and that's Tadano. Average height, average hair, average looks, average grades. He's the spitting image of normality that it's kind of scary at times. Fortunately, what he lacks in those attributes, he more than makes up for it with his personality. Now, with his ability to read the room just by looking at people's faces, he can easily think of a solution to resolve whatever conflict is ongoing. Eat your heart out, Psyche K. But when he's not reading the room, he's shown to be the most realistic character in the entire series. Now, instead of being a Gary Sue that can do anything or a useless character that drags the show down, Tadano was written to be a character that anyone and everyone can relate to. Eat your heart out, Kirito. Now, when dealing with a pretty girl like Komi, how does one react? They get nervous, of course. And that's what Tadano does almost every time. He's one of few characters that help progress the story while at the same time having some strong character development himself. In fact, some of the best moments in the series involves him as he shows that he's more than just a nervous wreck, especially when he's the one person that points out even the smallest details like noticing that Komi got a haircut. He's the type of character where you should never judge a book by its cover. To sum it up, Tadano is basically a Chad. Well, since I talked about these two, let's talk about the relationship. So, it should be pretty obvious even without reading the manga that Komi and Tadano will become a couple in the future. There's no point trying to hide it. They have such strong chemistry as they essentially balance out each other's flaws. Tadano helps Komi learn to open up to others, while Komi unknowingly helps Tadano build his confidence. And the moment where their relationship was at its best was when Tadano had experienced a very traumatic situation where Komi questioned whether or not they should remain friends as she blamed herself for what happened to him. This moment really showed the realism of friendship, showing that not every friendship is without its conflicts. Another thing that made their chemistry so strong is that they were there for each other at some of their lowest points. For example, in the second season, Komi is forced to stay at home due to school being closed because of a typhoon. She was enjoying the moment, but it was immediately broken when thunder and lightning struck, knocking out the power in her home. So other than her mother, who was there for her when she was scared? You guessed it was Tadano, as he called her phone to see if she was okay, leading to her asking him to stay on the phone, giving us a very sweet, tender, and wholesome moment as Tadano goes out of his way to help her. Now the big question, how does Komi return the favor? By being by Tadano's side when he fell ill later on in the season. Ironic given that he called her by accident. But what made this arguably the best moment of season 2 is that Komi showed how much she developed by going out of her way to help the one friend she cherishes the most. This is a couple that just gets better and better as the story progresses. So let's just hope the studio behind this anime makes another season showing the moment where they officially become a thing. The next noteworthy character is the ambiguous Najimi Osana. Now, this character is not only one of the most entertaining characters, but also one of the most annoying as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad character. They're pretty rowdy and a bit of a buzzkill, as they always ruin the moments when there's a slither of romantic tension between Komi and Tadano. But despite the rowdiness, Najimi is still an entertaining character due to most of the prominent running gags are centered around them. Now, before I talk about them, let's mention one thing. Some of you may wonder why I refer to Najimi as they instead of she. Well, that's because it's never confirmed what their gender is, and that's what makes this running gag hilarious, because it's not coming off as insulting. Najimi's portrayal is arguably one of the best representations of a non-binary character. Overall, when you add on the fact that they can pretty much befriend anybody and everybody, Najimi is a person that can be in any friend group. Just remember that not only do they have an unhealthy habit, but also they can't keep a secret. Another character to talk about is Nene Onamine, as she's one of the most laid-back characters in the entire series. She's also the most supportive of the characters, as she's the main one that openly supports the relationship between Komi and Tadano. She's the one character that, like Tadano, can read the room, seeing that other than Komi and to some extent Najimi, she was the only one that showed concern for Tadano, seeing that he was essentially being bullied by everyone in his class, including the teacher. Also, I love how they trolled the viewers when she's first introduced, making it seem like there's going to be a love triangle between her, Komi, and Tadano. That's when it's revealed that she's not the type to do that, giving us more realism to the relationship between Komi and Tadano. All in all, Onamine is that one big sister type character that's a good moral support. The rest of the side characters can be described in a few short sentences. Agari has communication issues like Komi, but is portrayed like a submissive dog, and may possibly be bulimic. Katai is exactly like Komi, but how he's seen by others is the polar opposite of Komi. And he may or may not be gay. Nakanaka is your stereotypical Chunibyo, though I can't judge because I have a history of being a Chunibyo. Kaede is possibly a distant relative of the late DJ Screw. Inaka sounds like she's from Alabama instead of Kyoto. Makiru just hates losing due to her competitive spirit, and is always the one person that breaks the fourth wall. Chika has an unhealthy obsession with body temperatures. Naruse desperately wants to be like Sakamoto. Hitomi is that typical little sister that always jumps to conclusions. Shuko is a hyperactive and immature yet supportive mother. Nasayomi is an intimidating yet supportive father. Shosuke is just like Komi, except he's quiet by choice. Yuiko is that typical strict yet loving grandmother. Akira is that adorable little cousin everyone has in their family. Ryoko is just like her sister, and Sadayoshi is just like his brother. And that pretty much wraps up most of the side characters. Except for one. Now I can finally talk about the worst character in the series and one of the most hated anime characters of all time. So brace yourselves, because I'm going to vent out a lot of frustration with this character, which is why I borrowed the censor mode remote from Some Call Me Johnny. So Johnny, if you're watching this video, please forgive me ahead of time. Anyway, there are a lot of anime characters that are considered hated, and from what I've seen over the years, there are at least 3 types of hated. First, there are the characters that everybody hates, like Bitch from The Rising of the Shield Hero, Shao Tucker from Full Metal Alchemist, Griffith from Berserk, and Rachel from Tower of God. Next, there are the characters that are hated due to controversial reasons, like Mineta from My Hero Academia, Sakura from Naruto, Emilia from Re:Zero, and Mami from Rent-a-Girlfriend. The third is the personal hated characters. Okay, everybody has a character that they personally can't stand, and of course, I have my personal hated characters, like Kirito from Sword Art Online, Taiga from Toradora, Mutsuki from Tokyo Ghoul Re, Rias from High School DxD, and Asuka from Neon Genesis Evangelion. So, here's the question. Where does Rin Yamai fit in all of this? Well, she doesn't fit in the first category. She doesn't fit in the second or the third. Excuse me for a second. You see, Rin Yamai, she fits all three f***ing categories. This terrible f***ing excuse for Yandere drags the show down more than a guy skydiving while holding an anvil. She already made a terrible f***ing impression from threatening the chat at his Tadano, but her introductions will make her such a f***ing terrible character overall. From the get-go, this never shuts the f*** up about how much she wants Komi for herself. It's just f***ing disgusting. Her character was made worse when it's revealed that she f***ing kidnapped Tadano and planned to murder him. Even after her shitty-ass excuse of a f***ing apology, does she change after learning the truth about Komi? No. In fact, she only gets f***ing worse. She went from a crazed stalker to a bona fide f***ing predator. From trying to trick Komi into eating something phallic to stealing Komi's stockings and running around the school with them over her f***ing head. This is a bigger f***ing predator than Jada Pinkett Smith.
Keep my wife's name
off, Will, before I put my foot so far up your ass you'll be shitting out your mouth. Anyway, even after all this, here's the big question. Does Yamai add anything to the story to make it entertaining? Well, no. She doesn't add a damn thing. Her character was f***ing pointless to the series. All of her comedic moments revolves around her being a psychopath pervert, and none of them are funny. They're all just plain predatory. The worst part is that Komi has little to no means of defending herself. And you want to know something? The story actively rewards her for being a f***ing psychopath, entitled, over-opinionated, and perverted But here's a quick spoiler for the manga. As I stated earlier in the video, Komi and Tadano become a couple. And of course, when Psycho Current learns of this, what does she do? A. Wish the best for them. B. Cry but clap for them. C. Tries to kill Tadano with a fish. Or D. Have a mental shutdown like a Persona 5 villain. Well, if your answer was C, then...
Ding 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 ding! That's right, nigga!
As you guess, she gets f***ing worse from there. In fact, she gets less and less screen time later in the manga. And how much did her character add or change the plot? Not in the least f***ing bit. All in all, Yamai is that one person that needs to be locked up in a f***ing insane asylum like Jesse Pomeroy with the key being thrown away. She's disgusting, tone-deaf, juvenile, shameful, over-opinionated, useless, unnecessary, predatory, and most importantly, just plain f***ing stupid. This bitch, her personality, and everybody who thinks that her kidnapping Tadano was supposed to be funny. There are plenty of better perverts in other series, like Kazuma from Konosuba, Rudius from Mushoku Tensei, Arata from Trinity 7. Hell, Issei from High School DxD is a better pervert, and I can't f***ing stand that series. Whew. Okay, that actually felt like a huge sense of relief off my chest. No, scratch that. That felt too damn good to get that off my chest. Almost like...
I have exorcised the demon.
Yeah, like that. But anyway, to sum up everything, the story was a simple yet effective one with very entertaining and three-dimensional characters. Well, when not including a possible relative of G.I. Jane over here. Also, the way that social anxiety disorder is portrayed really makes one aware of others that suffer from similar mental illnesses. So let's show some support to those out there.
Keep my wife's name.
Shut your bitch ass up.
The art and animation was just beautiful. Now, to be honest, it surprises me, and yet at the same time, it doesn't surprise me on what studio produced this. And what studio is that? That would be Ohm Incorporated, the same studio behind Inazuma 11, Odd Taxi, Yokai Watch, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, and two of the most iconic anime of all time, Pokemon and Berserk. Now, when you look at their resume, it's plain as day that their art style is very diverse, and they perfectly replicated the art style of the manga. As a matter of fact, the art and animation is a combination of many different art and animation styles. Komi's design is prime example of this, as depending on her mood, her design goes from simplified to detailed like she's a distant relative of Saitama from One Punch Man. But before we go into detail about the character designs, let's focus on the art style and the animation. Now, I've noticed how the art and animation changes depending on the mood of the scenes, and the frame rate is a key factor into this. Whenever the scene is more lighthearted or serious, the art and animation looks so colorful and vibrant, and the frame rate bumps to 40 to 60 frames per second like playing a game on a high-end gaming PC. When it becomes comedic, the art and animation looks like a little kid drew it with simple yet effective drawings, and the frame rate drops to around 30 frames with the occasional bump to 60. It's always a blast to see the art and animation play an important role in a comedy, and Ohm made sure that we're bound to laugh no matter the moment. Adding together the lighting, you have an anime that looks so good that it'll take your breath away. Then there are the background designs and the camera angles. These two parts blended together so well. The camera angles especially brought out the tone of each scene. The best moment where this was shown was during the first season with the sports festival, when Tadano was dizzy after spinning around with the bat. Just when it seemed like he was about to give up, the camera pans across the field to Komi as she cheers him on. It then transitions back to him right in his pupil as he sees her, and it immediately zooms out, giving one of the best and funniest moments in the anime. Ohm was not cutting any corners with this scene, especially as it showed not only the comedic side of this arc, but also the serious side. The character designs were top-notch as well, with the exception of essentially the crowds and the rest of the classmates, as each design was diverse, really showing off each of the characters' personalities. Komi's design was the clear standout as we see multiple sides to her character. From her simplified design, you see not only her timid and fragile side, but we see a side of her filled with excitement, and even the side that's curious about everything she learns about. With her detailed design, you see a side of her that's not only calm, but also a side that shows her compassionate side, and even a side of her that's determined to stand her ground. The rest of the character designs weren't as good as Komi's, with the possible exception of Tadano and Najimi, but their designs were well made and perfectly fit their personalities. The sound department was arguably the best part behind the characters. From the sound effects that brought out the comedy of each scene to the voice acting, everything was delivered beautifully. The soundtrack especially was the best part. It was a nice balance of comedy, soothing ambience, intensity, and tenderness. The music for each scene sets the tone so well that it feels like real life. For example, the aforementioned scene involving Komi afraid of lightning. The soft tone of the piano and the violins playing right behind really makes the scene so tender and wholesome. And of course, there's Tadano's sixth scene. The soft tone and notes of the piano in that scene really brought out Tadano's desperation to get well. And the moment when Komi shows up, the piano changes, and the tone changes to something more soothing and heartwarming. Look, I don't know what Yukari Hashimoto did to produce great music like this, but she deserves all the praise she can get. And of course, I can't talk about the music without bringing up the opening and ending themes, as the opening themes for both seasons really brought out the energetic and comedic side, while the ending theme brought out the lighthearted and wholesome side. Now, the voice acting on both sides was delivered beautifully. The voice actor of each character, and sadly including Psycho voice actresses, delivered performances that can compete with the likes of Phil Lamar, Mark Hamill, and Tara Strong. But if you ask me, it's better to watch the anime in the Japanese dub. No disrespect to Netflix, but the narration on the English dub side was very jarring and distracting. But before we talk about the English dub, let's talk about the Japanese dub. Aoi Koga's voicing of Komi was spot on. You can tell that she did her research on how people with social anxiety cope with life. She really brought out the naivety and fragility of Komi, making her such an entertaining and compelling character. With 9 years under her belt, I look forward to what Aoi does in the future. Then there's Gakuto Kajiwara's voicing of Tadano. Damn, this guy is versatile. When you're known for voicing two hyperactive characters, you'd expect Gakuto to voice another one like that. But he's shown that he can voice a character that's down to earth, relatable, and most importantly, a badass. Despite voicing mostly side characters, Gakuto can show that he's more than ready for main characters no matter what their personality is. There are a lot of other standout performances, like Rie Murakawa voicing Najimi, Ruriko Aoki voicing Onemine, Yukio Fuji voicing Agari, Rumi Okubo voicing Nakanaka, Junya Inoki voicing Shosuke, and sadly, Rina Hidaka voicing Psycho. Ohm was clearly trying to make this bitch likable by having a beloved voice actress portray her. I'm not the only one thinking that, am I? Well, Netflix was no exception to this, as they also had a very popular voice actress portray her. But first, let's talk about Komi's voice actress, Amber Lee Connors. Another voice actress that did her homework, as even though her performance can't really compare to Aoi's, Amber has shown that she's a force to be reckoned with. But if you ask me, I think that Tia Ballard would have done a better job, as she's the goddess of voicing Dandares. Kyle McCarley's voicing of Tadano was no slouch either, as he was one of the best performances in the English dub. Thankfully, Netflix didn't pull any punches with the voice cast, like Skylar Davenport voicing Najimi, Dorothy Elias Fawn voicing Shuko, Casey Mungio voicing Onimine, Sarah Ann Williams voicing Agari, Todd Habercorn voicing Tsukasa, and Christina V voicing Psycho. In the end, the art and animation was top notch, that can switch from serious to comedic in a heartbeat, and the sound lets you know that you should not miss out on what you hear. So what more can I say about Komi Can't Communicate? This is an anime that needs to be watched. For those who want to enjoy a comedy series, for those who want to see a wholesome and convincing love story, for those who want to see side characters steal the show, but most importantly, for those who want to understand what a person who suffers from mental illness goes through in their life. This is an anime that wants to send a message to everyone by giving us a simple yet effective coming-of-age story, while at the same time giving us three-dimensional and hilarious characters. Minus one psycho that should be in jail or burned by the stake. This is one of the best comedy series to come out in recent years, and has set the standard for any series that tackles mental health. So with that said, even though one character could have easily dragged the show down, I can proudly say that Komi Can't Communicate is godly. This is one of the best anime to come out this decade, and is a frontrunner for best comedy of the decade. But let's see what other comedy series can compete. Well, that's it for this review. Do you agree with my rating? What were your thoughts on Komi Can't Communicate? Comment below to give me your thoughts. Also, I know that I said that my next video would be a character analysis video, but don't fret. I'm still working on it as we speak. It's just taking longer than expected, but it will be released at a later time, because my next video will be a top 10 list. What will that list be? Sorry, not telling. You'll have to be patient. But for now, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, just like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to tap the bell icon so you're never missing out on the future video. But until then, thanks for watching. I'm leaving in Godspeed. Peace!